Hey, Coach Ryan here from Physical Culture for this Friday's Q&A. This week we actually received a lot of questions about bench pressing. So the tricky thing with bench pressing is there's a lot of different ways we can go. I don't think there's really a standard answer. It really just kind of, we have to address more like principles and then just kind of figure out like who are we asking to bench press. Is this like a youth athlete, an adult? Is this a pro athlete? Is it a strength athlete versus like a field and court athlete? So like all these things come into play when we're looking at like what's the best way to bench press, and then also like what are we using the bench press for? If I'm dealing with an elite level power lifter, totally different ball game than if I'm dealing with, let's say, like a baseball player. Whether it be from like the mechanics of the actual lift itself or from a programming standpoint. So we're going to dive a little bit into that in this Q&A session. But I just want to start by talking about the bench press. I mean, I think it's a very beneficial exercise. I think most of us start doing it in high school. Obviously, we do it very poorly. So if you're watching this, hopefully, I don't know who you are, but if you are a high school kid and you're looking for some information on like how to bench press, then this is the video that you want to watch. If you're an athlete that just wants to have bench pressing in their program, but doesn't want to jack up their shoulder, you also want to watch this video in its entirety first. So when we're bench pressing, a couple things that I don't want to see happen, I'm saying this specifically because we deal with a lot of overhead athletes or throwers, right? So baseball, softball, anything that's getting involved in doing this. Those types of athletes, we have to be very cautious of the wear and tear on a shoulder because it's already seeing a lot of overuse just in the sport itself. So when we deal with things like athletes when they're pressing and they start shrugging and we start seeing elbows flare when you're driving them into like internal rotation, or I'll comment on this later, let's say that athlete that wants to push the bar and then drive it back over their face. If you do that for a long period of time, here's what's going to happen. You're probably going to have some shoulder issues just because the mechanics itself aren't optimal. I want you to think of the shoulder like this. Like this is a pretty complex structure. We're not going to get too detailed on it, but you've only got so much room to move. I mean, you've got bone, tendon, ligament, nerves. Like there's a ton of stuff running through here. As you start to alter the mechanics of it and use it over time, it creates wear and tear. Right. So the bench press is a horizontal pressing motion, meaning I'm going to be pushing the bar away from me this way. This would be horizontal, not vertical. That's a separate video. With this, the first thing I want to cover is setup. Setup is supremely important because your setup is going to dictate the outcome of the exercise. So if you don't have a consistent setup, which we're about to go over, you're going to find issues with your bench pressing. Your motion will always be different and it'll always feel a little bit off. Now, I want to add to that movement is never the same. There's always some repetition without repetition. So there's always going to be little differences in the muscles you're recruiting, the sequence, the bar path. Like there's always going to be little changes. If you feel like you do a rep and any motion exactly the same every single time, please comment below and teach me how, because it just doesn't frickin' happen. So let's talk about this. With our new athletes, the first thing that we teach is we want to have the bar somewhere around the face or the eye so we're level with it. Biggest problem I see is we're thinking bench press. We know it's coming towards our chest. So most athletes tend to want to set up like this. They get under the bar, okay, and then they set up way the hell up here. Actually, my head's hanging off. That's a bit much. But the bar is like basically over their chest. So they grab the bar, they do their thing. They're like, okay, I'm just going to bring it down and then click. Okay, they don't have any consistency in their path, which is one problem. But really the problem starts at the setup. So you want to set the bar up over the eyes so that you're clearing the pins. It's over your chest. You've got plenty of margin for error. Okay. Bringing the barbell off the pins. Now, there's different ways to do this, but here's what I like to do. First thing is when we're gripping the bar, we want to have some consistency to our grip. When you know what you're doing and you're going for different pressing variations, yes, this changes, but at first let's build a foundation. Ideally, we want to have vertical forearms, right? And we want to make sure, if you're looking at this, we want to make sure that the wrist is not inside the bicep, okay? So here's my shoulder, here's my elbow, my wrist is inside. This is no bueno. This is not a good mechanical advantage. I'm actually having to use way too much tricep to try and push the bar away from me. So I'd like to keep that stacked over my elbow and vertical, okay? From there, I don't want my elbows, if you can see this, I don't want my elbows pressed into me. If I'm purposefully going for like a closer grip press, things are gonna change. But ideally, I wanna have, I would say at least minimum of fist length in between my elbow and my lats, okay? So I'm gonna set up in this position with everything vertical, okay? I'm gonna have the bar over my eyes, and when I unrack it, I'd like to bring that bar over the point I wanna press from. I'm gonna bring the bar down, nice straight path, and then from there, shortest distance between 2 points is going to be a straight line. However, if I go straight out, and this line was perfectly straight, when I'm on my back, I actually end up with my wrist ahead of my elbow slightly. What will happen then is that weight will start to pull my arms downward, which I'm losing my mechanical advantage. You're gonna feel like if you've got a ton of weight, this is gonna be very difficult. So there's gonna be a slight arc at the top for the weight to come slightly back toward my collarbones, okay? But it is not going to go in line with my eyes. It's the #1 issue we see with athletes is they try to take this weight and then put it back over their eyes. If they had a shitty setup, they're clipping the pins. Even if they don't, if they had a good setup, here's what's gonna happen. Over years and years of doing this, especially if you're a bodybuilder or you're that strength coach just like me and started lifting in high school and nobody told them what the hell to do. You keep putting that damn bar over your eyes. Here's what's gonna happen. You end up developing really awesome anterior deltoids because that muscle is what's raising the arm this way. So you start recruiting that muscle a ton. If you're an athlete, you're a thrower, that's an issue. You already use your shoulder too much. We don't want poor mechanics to where we're raising your shoulder and overdeveloping certain aspects of it, okay? So just take that in consideration. Nice straight bar path, not back over the eyes. All right, so set up under the bar, face is under the bar. I go ahead and get my grip. Now, grip. You'll see a lot of people on YouTube do this number where they grip the bar and then they've got it resting on their palms and their thumb's not wrapped around it. And then what happens? The person's bench pressing like 500 times and they smash that bar, crushes their rib cage. That's because they're a jackass and they didn't wrap their thumb around the bar like they're supposed to. So wrap your thumb around the bar, crush the hell out of the bar. Now why would I want to crush the hell out of the bar and wrap my thumb around it? #1, safety first. It's going to lock the bar in place. #2, irradiation. When I squeeze the hell out of that bar, all the muscles in my forearm, my biceps, my triceps, my shoulders, my pecs, everything gets more involved, creates more stability, so that allows me to apply more force. Okay, so crushing the bar and using the thumb, right? We were given thumbs for a reason. Using that to our advantage is going to be extremely beneficial, so make sure you integrate your thumb. Don't drop the bar in your chest, that would hurt. All right, so we're going to get on to the next thing is your wrist. If you watch my wrist, most of you tend to want to point your knuckles back at your face. What's happening is I'm creating a moment arm. So if you look at my wrist in relation to where the bar is, that's actually pushing my wrist into extension and stretching all of the connective tissue on the front side of my wrist. So like all of this stuff is being stretched. With a lot of weight, if I've got hundreds of pounds here, this is not good. This is not healthy for that connective tissue. So what I want to do is actually transfer that bar down so that the force is transferring through my radius and ulnar, my forearm. So I'm actually going to try to rotate my knuckles upward as if I were to try and punch someone in the nose, okay? So again, when we punch someone in the nose, we're also going to make a fist. We're not going to punch them like this, right? So, learning how to fight. I just didn't think we'd touch base on that. But I'm going to put my thumbs around it, crush, press up, get the knuckles pointed in the direction I want from the get-go, and then bring the bar over the place where I want to press. Now, the #1 issues I see is athletes do this number. They go, all right, we're on bench press. And they just jerk it out, and it's like floppy at the top, especially for newer lifters. Here's how I like to do this, okay? So get set.
Press up, take a second, feel good, feel confident about what you're gonna do. Pull that bar over top of where you want it to go down to. From there, I'm gonna pull the bar down, should have a nice vertical path, and then press. If I go too far, oh, my deltoids are holding on, so you're gonna feel a nice little balance point, but it's also not gonna be above your eyes. So somewhere around here-ish, right? I don't want to hear any keyboard warriors tell me I missed a frickin' millimeter. All right, so press up, good lift, pull back. Okay, so that's the basics. Now let's talk about some things you may not be seeing. So I got my grip, I got my good setup, I got the bar up, I got it set to where I want it to go. Now I'm going to actively pull this bar down. So the reason I'm doing this is to get the lats involved, all right? If I can get the lats involved, I get coupling, I get the lats and the pecs, shoulder working together to stabilize this heavy weight that's on top of me, all right? So I'm gonna pull it down actively, get the lats, and drive straight up, okay? Straight up-ish, whatever. Also, with the grip, when I do this, I want to try and crush the bar. It's like I'm trying to break a stick this way. So as I press, I pull back, away, and as I'm doing that, I try to crush the bar. It's an isometric, you're actually not even gonna see any movement. That's why I'm bringing this up. It's not something your eye's gonna catch. All of this should allow you to be in a fairly good position. The shoulder blades. When you pull down, I want your shoulder blade pulled back and together. Pull that bar to you, keep those shoulder blades nice and tight, and then press the bar away, okay? Now, when we do this, if done right, here's what we should be preventing. The most common thing I see with bench press is when athletes go overhead, that's pretty common. I also see shrugging a lot, and then we also get that athlete that likes to let the elbows flare. Now, all of that is attributed to the scapula not being stable, okay? So if I elevate, that's a scapula. My arms come out, internally rotate. Again, I get scapular. So, lats gotta be integrated, scapula's gonna be retracted and set, and we're pressing the bar away from us, okay? So those are just some really basic key points. Now, I have not addressed my spine position, I have not addressed legs yet, so let's dive into that now. Spine position, there's gonna be some variation here. First thing is, if you're a strength athlete, you're probably looking at this and go, man, that guy's got no arch. Okay, yeah, use your arch, that's cool, you're a strength athlete. I want to shorten the range of motion, right? And I also wanna utilize the elastic properties of my anterior chain by stretching all that connective tissue and preloading. That allows me to express more force. So good stuff, don't change that. Now, if you're an athlete, field, court, like you're a thrower, I would actually recommend you may want to consider doing something a little bit different, and that I want to try and get you to maintain some trunk stability. So your rib cage, let's say this is your rib cage, and your pelvis want to stay stacked on top of each other. When I go into this big arch back, essentially here's my rib cage, here's my pelvis, I'm opening that up, okay? If I'm a thrower, right, I don't want my throwers doing this and being floppy, okay? The big thing, the reason I'm bringing this up is I want transfer, okay? So if I'm dealing with a baseball player versus a strength athlete and say a power lifter, I've got a totally different approach, right? There's totally different sports, so it should be a different approach. We want to try and preserve shoulder health, and we don't need to really set world records, right? How strong is strong enough? The athlete needs to be strong, they need to have a strong shoulder, and they need to be able to express force. Duh. But at what cost? So let's take a look at this, because both options are valid. Now, set up, get your grip. Okay, legs. I'm 6'2", I got some long legs. Aren't they sexy? Look at them. Okay, so now, my feet connect to the floor here, all right? I drive up, I pull the bar over, and that should shorten the range of motion. Okay? Now, the opposite of that is to lock my rib cage down, okay? Get my pelvis tucked under a little bit, and my rib cage down to get a neutral spine. I'm not trying to completely make the lumbar lordosis disappear. I'm going to maintain some lordosis, but I'm going to keep my trunk connected. From there, I'm going to press. All right? Now, the reason I do that is I want to see carryover. If I teach an athlete every time to do a pressing motion and their rib cage has to be wide open like this, what am I going to teach them to do when they go to play their sport? I want carryover. So my way of getting carryover is option A, teach them the standard powerlifting style of bench pressing and do some pressing standing up because that's functional, right? There's going to be carryover. Or B, get them to keep this under control while they're moving a load with a barbell. It's pretty simple. Both are great options. So it just depends on what you're going for. Now my legs, here's the thing. Legs are crucial. I've got so many athletes that come in here. I don't know why you guys want to do this. It's hilarious to me. But they get a couple things. Number one, if you're this guy and you want your feet elevated on a bench, no, don't do this. You've got a heavy weight above you. This is not safe. I want safe and effective, and I want strong, okay? This is not strong and this is not safe and effective. Your legs flopping around. If you really want to do this, just do floor presses, take the bench away and get your butt on the floor. It's gonna limit your range of motion, but at least you don't have to worry about like falling off the bench or something. Number two, the guy with happy feet, man, you cracked me up. That guy, he's got this heavy weight on here, his buddies are cheering him on, and he goes, no, keep your feet connected to the ground, okay? Your feet matter. So I want you to think of it like this. I think Dan John said this. If I'm wrong, just please correct me on a comment below. But essentially, if you're bench pressing, right, you're doing your maximal effort, and I come up and I stab a fork in your leg, are you gonna be able to move that weight? Hell no, you're dropping that weight. You're worried about the fork in your leg, okay? So your lower body matters because everything is connected. And if we're talking about radiation, it's not just me squeezing the hell out of the bar, it's also me rooting my feet into the ground and driving them through the earth. That's gonna allow me to use the lower body, contract the glutes hard, transfer that energy through the lats, and then eventually, boom, I'm lifting a heavy weight off of me, okay? So all of that matters. Now, me being 6'2", I can keep my legs flat on the ground and be pretty comfortable. Okay, some people got a real big arch and you're gonna see balls of the feet digging into the ground and that creates a bigger arch. For me, I'm actually taking away a little bit of an arch by doing that, okay? So, both are good options. If you're a strength athlete, you should be following more like elite level power lifters and then finding one that has the same body proportions as you and maybe try to experiment and model that. If you're an athlete, right, field and court, thrower, you should be following this type of setup and protocol. So it's all fair game. Definitely, have some bench pressing in your program. It's not completely useless. But is it 100% functional? Is there going to be carryover? We can debate that. That's a second argument or a separate argument. But if you want to talk about like pressing and having carryover and doing things standing, just do some pressing standing. It's real simple. You're gonna get the carryover you want. So take that in consideration. You're gonna find your leg length, but remember your body's connected, so drive your freaking feet into the ground, irradiate hard, crush the freaking bar, pull it down to you, and press that thing through the ceiling and crack it in too. So those are some basic bench pressing tips I can give you. I could keep going from here, but I don't want to make this video too long. If you've got a specific question on bench pressing, like should you bench press, what kind of bench press should you do, hit us up, just comment. We're going to try and answer as many questions as possible on there. But again, every Friday we're going to be posting these Q&As. So if you got a specific question, fire it at us. We'd love to hear from you. I hope this is helpful. I know I kind of ranted. There's more I'm probably forgetting. I tend to do that. But if I did forget something, just ask and I'll try to get to it in another episode. But anyway, thanks for watching. Please subscribe and comment below. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching.